Hi, guten Erev, Sukkos. We know it's a time of happiness, Man Simchoseinu. So for the next few minutes, I'm just going to entertain you. I don't know if many of you know my career, but in the last few years, I've been somewhat transient in my locations for several reasons, for business, for family situations. And one time I was invited to Skver, and I came there for a Shabbos, and it was so beautiful. So I felt like it was like kedusha. It was tremendous, and I was attracted to it. And the people saw that I was enjoying myself. My balachsanias approached me after Avdallah, and he said, "Why don't you stay a little bit?" Okay. I ended up staying 3 months, and how I left is another story. But while I was there in Skver, I used to learn downstairs in the library, and late at night, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, and there was always a chevra there that would learn. I think they were learning Kabbalah and these things, very, very spooky, very holy. But there was one chassid that he started singing, and he started humming the tune that I thought Chabad does by Musaf. They go nine 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 dun 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 dun. Well, we know the niggin, right? So, old man who's in charge of the Oitzra Sfarim is humming the song, walking by me, and I say to him, Chabad, right? He goes, no, Kalin. And he shows me in a sefer that is brought down that this is Mashiach's niggin. Mashiach's going to come, this is going to be the niggin. So now we're talking about Kalin, so I'd like to share with you a story that happened 200 years ago to a Kalina Chosid who lived in Europe 200 years ago, and he was a very poor yid, but besimcha with mitzvahs. And he lived next to the richest man in town, Moshe. And Moshe every year would put up his lavish sukkah, and Nebuch, the neighbor, the Karlina Chosid, didn't have money, so he would go always the last day and try to put together scraps of wood, whoever threw something out, and that's how he would make his sukkah every year. But every year, especially the first night, they would sit by the sukkahs, and Moshe would eat his heart out. He heard the Karlina Chosid learning and davening and singing such brand, such fire, such emotion, and he was so jealous year after year. He says, I gotta stop this. So finally he went to all the moichrim in town that sell lumber, and he said, don't sell to him, or I'm gonna fine you, or I'm gonna take away my business from you. Do not give to him anything. So Erev Yontov, of course, the Kalina Chos is looking for the scraps of wood so he can make his sukkah, and he can't find any. And he's going back and he's distraught, but he says, no, I'm going to be B'teach B'Hashem, and he thinks to himself, and he says, there's one place where I know there's wood, the Beis HaKforos. So he goes to the cemetery, and he meets his friend over there, and he says to him, where's the wood? He says, over there. He says, can I take it? He says, take as much as you want. The only one problem, on the wood, it's written, Poi Tomen, Hu Tomen. Here is buried. They were used as tombstones for the cemetery. But the Kalila Chassid says wood is wood. Doesn't say anywhere in the halacha, it can't say anything on it. So he goes ahead and makes himself a beautiful, beautiful sukkah, better than any other year. And he's so mesameach, and he's singing and dancing the first night in his sukkah. Mamish du spiesen Avram Avinu. He was kilu dancing with Avram Avinu and the Shechina and all the Avis HaKdoshim together. And he was elated. And Moshe sitting next door is eating his kishkis out. And he goes next to, he can't control himself, and he starts knocking on the door, and he says, let me in. And he lets him in, and he sits in the sukkah, and he says, what's going on over here? When are you going to move already? You're killing me. He says, what's that on the wall? What does it say? It says, punt, punt, punt. Poi tamu. Over here is buried. He says, where did you get this sukkah? I made sure that all the lumber dealers weren't going to sell to you. I went to the cemetery. And now let me tell you a story, Mr. Moshe. Please sit down. I was looking for the wood. I couldn't find any wood. But on the way home, I bumped into the Malach HaMavis. And the Malach HaMavis said he would accompany me to my house because he had to go see the neighbor Moshe. The visit is not a happy one, is it? It's not. It's fatal. And Moshe says, and he says to him, where are you coming? Coming from Moshe. So he says, leave Moshe alone. He says, why do you leave Moshe alone? He says, he's dead. He's been dead for years. I'm his neighbor. On Succos, it's like the mice. You can't hear anything. It's silent. He has no simcha from mitzvahs. He has no life from learning Torah. He has nothing. He's dead. He's been dead for years. Go. He shows him where the wood is. Takes the wood. Builds himself the most beautiful sukkah. A little Beis Hamikdash. And Moshe is there crying. Because he knows it's true. In his heart of hearts. Rabbi say this is the Zman of Simchosenu. Happiness. This is what everybody is searching for. And Hashem is telling us right after we're pure from Yom Kippur, just a few days later, here is the mitzvah of Sukkah. The mitzvah of Sukkah is powerful. It's mystical, spiritual. We know the halachas when it comes to a Sukkah, it has to have 2 walls and a little bit. Because the little bit is considered a third wall. It's an illusionary wall. Another halacha is good asik. That if you have a wall that comes within a certain amount of tfachim to the ground, it's considered as if it's touching the ground. And it's even like a halacha if you could use it as an erev or not. So many illusionary things. What's going on here? This is Sukkos. The answer is it's a very mystical time. The Eibishter, the Shechina comes into our Sukkah. It's not protection of 3 walls. 2 walls and a little bit. It's a demonstration that we want to be with you, Hashem. You're the groom and we're the bride, and we're coming to the chuppah, and we're coming after the chuppah to the honeymoon, which is Sukkos, and that love that we get on Sukkos, the Zman Simchosenu, should carry us through the year with abundance of happiness, gesund, nachas, parnasa, and alles gut. Chag Sameach.